I'm Chloe, 32 female. For most of my adult life, I lived by a simple code: work hard, be responsible, and make my family proud. I had a great apartment downtown, a demanding but rewarding career as a senior marketing manager, and a life I had meticulously built from the ground up. I thought I had everything figured out, that my efforts were seen and valued, especially by those closest to me. But sometimes, the people you'd take a bullet for are the ones standing behind the trigger. This is the story of how losing my job didn't just cost me my income. It stripped away the illusion of my family and forced me to find my true worth in the last place I ever thought to look. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. Life has a funny way of pulling the rug out from under you when you're just starting to get comfortable. For 8 years, I had poured my heart and soul into a top-tier marketing firm. I wasn't just an employee, I was a cornerstone of my department. I'd launched campaigns that broke company records, mentored junior staff who went on to do incredible things, and consistently exceeded every target thrown my way. My career was my identity, a testament to my belief that merit and dedication were the ultimate currency. I had a corner office with a view of the city skyline, a salary that afforded me independence and the respect of my peers. It was a life built on a foundation of 12-hour days and skipped lunches, and I was proud of it. The day it all fell apart started like any other Tuesday. I was in the middle of a strategy meeting, outlining a multi-platform launch for a major client, when my director's assistant interrupted. "Chloe, can I have a word?" she asked, her expression uncharacteristically grim. A knot of unease tightened in my stomach. I was escorted not to my director's office, but to a sterile, unfamiliar conference room on the executive floor. My director was there, along with a woman from HR I'd never met. They didn't ask me to sit. The words that followed were a blur of corporate jargon: restructuring, strategic realignment, redundancies. They told me my position was being eliminated, effective immediately. It was a cold, impersonal speech that felt like a slap in the face. There was no acknowledgement of my years of service, my successes, or my loyalty. I was just a line item on a spreadsheet, a position deemed redundant. They handed me a thin folder containing my severance package and told me security would escort me to my desk to collect my personal belongings. The entire process took less than 10 minutes. 8 years of my life, erased in the time it takes to drink a cup of coffee. Walking through the office with a security guard trailing me was the most humiliating experience of my life. The faces of my colleagues were a mixture of shock, pity, and a discomforting avoidance. No one knew what to say. I packed my things into a cardboard box, a few photos, a favorite mug, an award I'd won last year, and was walked out of the building like a criminal. Standing on the sidewalk in the middle of a bustling afternoon, the city sounds muffled by the roaring in my ears, I felt utterly adrift. My identity had been ripped away, and I had no idea who I was without it. I called my mom, Brenda, expecting a comforting voice, a shoulder to cry on. Her initial reaction was shock. "Oh, honey, no, after everything you've done for them?" But her sympathy was fleeting, quickly replaced by a barrage of questions that felt more like an interrogation. "Did you see this coming? Were there signs? Are you sure you were performing well?" It felt less like concern and more like she was trying to find a reason, a flaw in me that explained this sudden failure. I tried to explain that it was a corporate decision, that it had nothing to do with my performance, but she didn't seem to hear me. "Well," she sighed, "you're smart. You'll figure something out." My dad, Mark, was more practical but equally dismissive. When I told him, his first response was, "Is the severance good?" He advised me to file for unemployment immediately and start updating my resume. There was no, "I'm sorry this happened to you," no, "take some time for yourself." It was all about the next logical step, as if I were a machine that had malfunctioned and just needed a quick repair. My brother Ethan was the worst. When I called him, he was on his way to happy hour with his colleagues. "That's rough, Chloe," he said, the clinking of glasses audible in the background. "But hey, look on the bright side. A little time off, you were always so stressed anyway." His attempt at optimism felt like a profound misunderstanding of the situation. This wasn't a vacation, it was a crisis. Before I could respond, he cut me off. "Gotta go, big sis, we're celebrating, I got." "A promotion?" He said it with such casual excitement, completely oblivious to the irony. I mumbled a congratulations and hung up, feeling smaller and more alone than ever. In the days that followed, my family's initial, lukewarm sympathy curdled into impatience. Every time I expressed my anxiety or frustration, my mom would say, "Chloe, you need to stop complaining and be proactive. Wallowing isn't going to get you a new job." My dad would chime in with, "There are plenty of fish in the sea. Just get back out there." They treated my grief over losing a career I loved like a childish tantrum. They didn't understand that I was mourning a part of myself. The message was clear. My feelings were an inconvenience. I was expected to bounce back immediately, to put on a brave face and not burden them with my problems. The support I so desperately needed was replaced with platitudes and pressure. I started to withdraw, keeping my job search struggles and my growing sense of despair to myself. The unraveling had begun, and I was completely on my own. Just a week after my world had been turned upside down, my mom called, her voice buzzing with an excitement I hadn't heard since I delivered my bad news. "Chloe, darling, I have wonderful news," she chirped. "We're throwing a party for Ethan this Saturday." I stayed silent, waiting for the punchline. "He got promoted to analyst II. It's not a huge jump, but your father and I think it's so important to celebrate every success. It's a big step for him." I was speechless. An analyst II. My brother, who had been at his firm for just over 2 years, was getting a lavish party for what was essentially an incremental, almost guaranteed step up in the corporate ladder. Meanwhile, my 8 years of dedication and senior-level achievements, now erased, had earned me nothing but impatient sighs and instructions to stop complaining. The hypocrisy was staggering. "A party?" I managed to say, my voice flat. "Mom, that's great." "Oh, it will be," she continued, oblivious to my tone. "I've invited everyone, Aunt Carol, the Hendersons from next door, all of his work friends. I've ordered a custom cake and we're having it catered. You have to be there. It's a family celebration." The words family celebration felt like a cruel joke. It wasn't a family celebration, it was the coronation of the golden child, and I was expected to be a smiling court jester. Protesting felt futile. Arguing would only lead to accusations of being jealous or selfish. So, I agreed to go, a knot of dread tightening in my gut. I knew it would be a painful ordeal, but I underestimated just how bad it would be. The party was exactly as over the top as my mother had described. The backyard of my parents' suburban home was decked out with fairy lights and balloons in the colors of Ethan's company. A professional caterer was serving hors d'oeuvres from a pristine white tent. There must have been 50 people there, all mingling, laughing, and clinking glasses of champagne. At the center of it all was Ethan, soaking in the adoration. He was holding court, regaling his friends with a story, his chest puffed out with pride. My parents flanked him like royal guards, beaming at their successful son. I felt like a ghost from the moment I arrived. I had put on a nice dress and forced a smile, but it felt like a cheap costume. My Aunt Carol was the first to corner me. "Chloe, so good to see you. I heard about your job, such a shame, but don't you worry, you're a smart girl. You'll land on your feet." She patted my arm with pity before turning to her husband. "Did you hear Ethan got promoted? Analyst II? He's going places, that one." The comparison was unspoken but deafening. Every conversation was the same. People would offer me a brief, sympathetic platitude before immediately pivoting to gush about Ethan's incredible achievement. My father, who had been so pragmatic about my job loss, was now the proudest man on earth. He clapped Ethan on the back, telling anyone who would listen, "This is just the beginning for him. He's got a real head for finance. Always has." My mother floated through the crowd, a perfect hostess, her smile never wavering. She'd stop at each group, point to Ethan and say, "Aren't you just so proud of him?" I tried to engage, to be the supportive sister, but it was impossible. I felt invisible. I stood by the drink table, nursing a club soda, watching my family celebrate a minor career milestone for my brother with a level of enthusiasm they had never once shown for my far more significant accomplishments. I remembered when I was made senior manager. I had called my parents ecstatic. My mom's response was, "Oh, that's nice, dear." Does that mean you'll finally have more time to find a husband? My dad had just said, good, make sure you're maxing out your 401k. There was no party, no catered affair, no public declaration of pride. My success was just an expectation fulfilled. His was a cause for a grand spectacle. The breaking point came during the toast. My dad stood on the patio steps, champagne flute in hand, and tapped a spoon against it to get everyone's attention. I just want to say a few words, he began, his voice thick with emotion. Brenda and I are so incredibly proud of our son, Ethan. From the day he was born, we knew he was special. He's hardworking, dedicated, and he never gives up. This promotion is a testament to his character. To Ethan, the crowd roared, to Ethan, and drank. My mother was wiping a tear from her eye. My brother looked smug, basking in the spotlight. In that moment, I wasn't just invisible, I was erased. My pain, my struggle, my years of hard work, none of it mattered. It was all about him, always had been. I felt a wave of nausea and cold anger wash over me. I couldn't breathe. I needed to get out of there. I slipped away from the crowd, making my way inside the house, intending to grab my purse and leave without a word. No one would even notice I was gone. The noise of the party faded behind me as I entered the quiet of the house. I just needed to escape before I either broke down or said something I'd regret. I stumbled into my father's home office, the one room in the house that was usually quiet and untouched during parties. I needed a moment to compose myself before I could face the drive home. The room was dark, save for the sliver of light from the hallway, and smelled of old books and leather. I leaned against the heavy oak desk, taking deep, shuddering breaths, trying to push down the lump forming in my throat. My eyes scanned the cluttered surface of the desk. Stacks of mail, a half-finished crossword puzzle, a tarnished silver letter opener. And then I saw it. Tucked away in a small ceramic pen holder, almost hidden behind a stack of bills, was a business card. It was old, the corners softened with age and the ink slightly faded. But the name was still clear. David Miller, founder and CEO, Apex Innovations. Below the name was a phone number and an address for an office in a city 1,000 miles away. David. My Uncle David. My mother's estranged older brother. A flood of memories washed over me. Uncle David had been a constant, joyful presence in my early childhood. He was the fun uncle, the one who would toss me in the air until I shrieked with laughter, who would slip me a $20 bill when my parents weren't looking. He was an entrepreneur, always buzzing with new ideas and a contagious energy that my more conservative parents found unsettling. He and my mother, Brenda, were like oil and water. He was a dreamer and a risk-taker. She was pragmatic and risk-averse. Their relationship had always been tense, but it had completely fractured about 10 years ago after a bitter argument over my grandparents' inheritance. My mother claimed David had been greedy. He claimed she was trying to control everything. They hadn't spoken since. The last time I had seen him was at my college graduation. He had shown up unannounced, much to my mother's visible annoyance. He pulled me aside after the ceremony, away from my family's polite, restrained congratulations. "Chloe, I am so incredibly proud of you," he'd said, his eyes shining with genuine warmth. "You have a fire in you. Don't ever let anyone put it out." Then he handed me that very business card. "My new company is taking off," he told me. "We're in tech, building something big. If you ever decide you want a real adventure, a place where your ideas will actually be valued, you call me. There will always be a spot for you." At the time, I had thanked him, flattered but dismissive. I had a clear path laid out: climb the corporate ladder at a prestigious firm in my hometown. The idea of moving 1,000 miles away to work for my eccentric uncle's risky startup seemed like a fantasy. I had my life planned. I tucked the card into my wallet, and eventually, it had found its way here, into this pen holder on my dad's desk, forgotten. Staring at the card now, under the dim light of the office, his words came rushing back. "A place where your ideas will actually be valued." The phrase echoed in the empty room, a stark contrast to the scene unfolding in the backyard. Outside, my family was celebrating my brother's conformity, his predictable ascent up a predefined ladder. My own ambition, my own fire, had been met with indifference and now, impatience. Holding that small piece of cardstock felt like holding a key. It wasn't just a job offer. It was an escape route, a lifeline to a world where I might not be an afterthought. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the card. The number was probably disconnected, the company likely defunct. It had been 10 years. A decade is an eternity, especially in the tech world. It was a long shot, a desperate, foolish hope. But it was hope. It was the first glimmer of it I'd felt in weeks. The sounds of the party, of Ethan's laughter and my father's booming voice filtered into the office. The celebration no longer felt like a personal insult. It felt like a sign. A confirmation that this place, this life, was no longer mine. My family had made it clear where I stood. They had shown me my value in their world, or lack thereof. I slipped the business card back into the pen holder. I didn't want my dad to know I'd seen it. This had to be my secret, my plan. I took one last deep breath, the anger and hurt solidifying into a cold, hard resolve. I walked out of the office, through the house, and slipped out the front door without saying a word to anyone. As I drove away, the cheerful glow of the party lights shrinking in my rearview mirror, I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a sense of purpose. I was done being the forgotten daughter, the convenient disappointment. I was going to make that call. I was going to see if that faded lifeline could still pull me to shore. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt since the day I was laid off. The humiliation of the party had burned away the fog of my grief, leaving behind a steely determination. I sat at my kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee, and stared at the photo of my uncle's business card on my phone. My heart hammered against my ribs. Making this call felt like stepping off a cliff. What if the number was disconnected? What if his company had failed? What if he didn't even remember me, or the offer he'd made a decade ago? The fear of rejection was immense. But the fear of staying here, of slowly fading into the background of my own life, was even greater. I took a deep breath and dialed the number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. I was about to hang up, my courage failing, when a man's voice answered. David Miller. It was him. His voice was older, a little rougher around the edges, but unmistakably the same warm, energetic tone I remembered. Uncle David, I asked, my voice barely a whisper. It's Chloe, Brenda's daughter. There was a moment of silence on the other end, and my stomach plummeted. He didn't remember. But then he let out a low chuckle. Chloe, my goodness, I haven't heard that name in a long time. How are you, kiddo? The relief was so overwhelming I could have cried. I'm okay, I lied, then immediately corrected myself. No, actually, I'm not. A lot has happened. I stumbled through the story, telling him about my job, the layoff, the soul-crushing experience at my brother's party. I told him how I found his card, how I was feeling lost and invisible. I talked for 10 minutes straight, pouring out all the frustration and hurt I had bottled up for weeks. He listened patiently, not interrupting once. When I finished, there was another pause. Your mother hasn't changed a bit, has she? He said, a note of sadness in his voice. Always had to have her golden boy. He sighed. Chloe, I meant what I said at your graduation, every word of it. The offer still stands. My breath hitched. Really? But it's been 10 years, you don't even know if I'm qualified. I know you, he said simply. I know you're smart and I know you're a fighter. That's more important than any resume. Apex Innovations is doing better than I ever dreamed. We're a major player in logistics software now. We just landed a massive international contract and we're expanding. I need good people, people I can trust. I need a head of marketing, someone to build my brand from the ground up to tell our story to the world. The job is yours if you want it. Head of marketing. It wasn't just a job, it was a leadership position, a chance to build something new. It was a role far bigger than the one I had lost. I don't know what to say, I stammered. Say you'll fly out here next week, he said. Come see the city, see the office, meet the team. I'll cover all the expenses. No strings attached. If you like what you see, we'll talk specifics. If not, you get a free vacation and a chance to clear your head. What do you say? It was an insane proposition. To uproot my entire life based on a 10-year-old offer from an uncle I barely knew anymore. To move to a city where I knew no one. All my sensible, risk-averse instincts, the ones my parents had drilled into me, were screaming at me to say no. but another voice, a quieter, more insistent one, urged me to say yes. It was the voice that was tired of being sensible, of playing by the rules and getting nothing in return. Yes, I said, the word coming out stronger than I expected. Yes, I'll do it. The rest of the week was a whirlwind of covert planning. I didn't tell my family where I was going. I simply told them I was taking a short trip to clear my head, a phrase they seemed to approve of, as it implied I was moving on from my wallowing. I booked the flight, packed a suitcase with my best professional attire, and spent hours online researching Apex innovations. What I found astonished me, my uncle hadn't been exaggerating. Apex was a legitimate success story featured in tech journals and business magazines. They were known for their innovative software and a positive company culture that stood in stark contrast to the cutthroat corporate world I came from. The more I read, the more excited I became. When I landed in the new city, my uncle was there to greet me at the airport. He looked older, his hair now more silver than brown, but his eyes had the same energetic spark. He gave me a huge bear hug that lifted me off the ground. "Welcome to your new life, Chloe," he said with a grin. He drove me through the vibrant, bustling city, pointing out landmarks and neighborhoods. It felt alive, full of possibilities. The next day, he took me to the Apex Innovations headquarters. It was a modern, open-concept office in a renovated warehouse, buzzing with a creative, collaborative energy. There were no stuffy cubicles, no rigid hierarchy. People were laughing, brainstorming on whiteboards, and genuinely seemed happy to be there. He introduced me to his team, a group of brilliant, passionate people from all over the world. They were welcoming and treated me with an immediate respect that was both startling and refreshing. David gave me a tour and then sat me down in his office, which had a glass wall overlooking the entire floor. He laid out his vision for the company, the challenges they faced, and where he saw the head of marketing fitting in. He wasn't just offering me a job, he was inviting me to be a partner in his dream. He laid out a salary and benefits package that was nearly double what I had been making before. I spent 3 days there, shadowing meetings, having lunch with the team, and exploring the city on my own. With every passing hour, the life I had left behind felt more and more distant, like a poorly fitting coat I had finally shed. This was the road not taken, the one I had been too scared to even consider 10 years ago, and now it was stretching out before me, clear and inviting. On the last day, I sat with David in a coffee shop. "So," he said, "what's the verdict?" I looked at him, the man who had seen a fire in me when my own family only saw a disappointment, and I smiled. "I'm in," I said. "When can I start?" Returning home felt like stepping back into a black-and-white movie after living in vibrant color. The 2 weeks I gave myself to pack up my life were a study in quiet efficiency and emotional detachment. My first order of business was to break my apartment lease. I braced for a fight and a hefty penalty, but as luck would have it, my landlord had a waiting list for units in my building and was happy to let me go with minimal fuss. Selling my furniture was surprisingly easy, too. I posted everything online, and within a week, my apartment was a hollow, echoing shell filled with nothing but moving boxes. Each item sold, each box packed, felt like severing another tie to my old life. It was liberating. Telling my family was the part I dreaded most, but I decided to handle it with the same cool, professional demeanor they had shown me. I invited them over to my empty apartment under the guise of having a talk. They walked in and looked around at the boxes in confusion. My mother, Brenda, was the first to speak. "Goodness, Chloe, are you moving into a smaller place? I told you it was important to downsize and be frugal during times like these." "No," I said calmly, motioning for them to sit on the 2 dining chairs I had left. "I'm moving out of the city. I've accepted a new position." My father, Mark, perked up. "Oh, that's wonderful news. Where is it? Is it with your old competitor, Davis and Lee?" "No, it's in a different state," I said, letting the words hang in the air. "I've taken a job as the head of marketing for a tech company called Apex Innovations." My mother's face went pale. "Apex, as in David's company?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "That's the one. I confirmed, my tone even. A torrent of emotions washed over her face: shock, disbelief, and then a flash of pure anger. "You went behind our backs, you contacted him." "I called him," I corrected her gently. "And he offered me an incredible opportunity, one where I'll be valued." My brother Ethan, who had been silent until now, let out a scornful laugh. "Valued? Chloe, he's your uncle. It's a pity job. You couldn't find anything on your own, so you had to go crawling to the black sheep of the family." That was the moment something inside me snapped. The years of quiet resentment, of swallowing my hurt, of playing the part of the dutiful daughter and sister, it all fell away. "A pity job?" I repeated, my voice dangerously low. "Ethan, this pity job is a senior executive role with a salary you couldn't dream of making in the next 20 years. I'll be leading an entire department, building a global brand. Your promotion was a line-level bump that the company gives out like party cipation trophies, but please tell me more about how I'm crawling." The color drained from Ethan's face. My parents stared at me aghast. I had never spoken to them, to any of them, like that before. I had always been the peacemaker, the one who absorbed the slights and kept the family dynamic stable. That person was gone. "How could you do this to me, Chloe?" my mother cried, her voice rising. "To align yourself with him after what he did to this family." "What he did?" I shot back. "As I recall, he wanted to invest Grandpa's inheritance to grow it for everyone, and you wanted to lock it away in a low-yield savings account. He saw potential, and you saw risk. That's the difference between him and you, and it's why I'm leaving. I'm choosing potential over the safety of being a supporting character in Ethan's life story." My father finally spoke, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Your mother is right. This is a betrayal, Chloe. Families are supposed to stick together." "Yes, they are," I said, standing up. "They're supposed to support each other. When I lost my job, you told me to stop complaining. When Ethan got a minor promotion, you threw a gala. You didn't stick with me, you pushed me away. I'm not betraying this family. I'm just finally accepting the role you gave me in it, the outsider. So, I'm making it official." I walked them to the door. They were stunned into silence. There were no hugs, no well wishes, just the cold, hard reality of the chasm that had opened between us. As I closed the door behind them, I didn't feel a shred of guilt. I felt free. The next 2 months were a blur of activity. I moved into a beautiful new apartment in a city that already felt more like home than the one I'd left behind. My Uncle David was a rock, helping me get settled and introducing me to his circle of friends. Work was exhilarating. I was building a marketing department from scratch, hiring my own team, and developing strategies that were making a real impact. My ideas weren't just heard, they were celebrated and implemented. I worked harder than ever, but for the first time, it didn't feel like a grind. It felt like I was building my own kingdom, brick by brick. I had almost no contact with my family. My mother sent a few guilt-laden texts, which I ignored. My father sent a single, terse email asking for my new address for his records, which I provided without commentary. Ethan didn't contact me at all. The silence was deafening, but it was also peaceful. I was no longer waiting for their approval, no longer measuring my worth by their standards. I was defining it for myself. And as my new life began to take shape, a new plan began to form in my mind. It wasn't about revenge in the traditional sense. It wasn't about hurting them. It was about showing them, in the clearest and most undeniable way possible, exactly what they had thrown away. 6 months after my move, my new life was thriving beyond my wildest expectations. The marketing strategies I implemented at Apex Innovations had yielded explosive results. We saw a 300% increase in qualified leads, our brand recognition skyrocketed, and we were featured in a major tech publication as one of the fastest-growing companies of the year. The article specifically mentioned the visionary new marketing leadership as a key driver of our success. My Uncle David was ecstatic, and I was given a significant bonus and stock options that made my previous career's earnings look like pocket change. I wasn't just an employee, I was a respected partner in a booming enterprise. I had built a new life, a new career, and a new sense of self on the ashes of my old one. It was around this time that I received an unexpected email. It was from my father. The subject line was simple: family news. My heart beat a little faster as I opened it. The email was short and to the point. My cousin Sarah was getting married, and the wedding was in my old hometown. The email ended with a stilted, "We know you're busy, but it would mean a lot to the family if you could be there." My first instinct was to delete it. Why would I want to walk back into that lion's den? But then, a different idea began to take shape. This wasn't just a wedding, it was an opportunity. A chance to close this chapter of my life on my own terms. It was the perfect stage to reveal the new Chloe, not for their approval, but for my own sense of closure. I replied to my father with a brief, polite email: "Thank you for the invitation. I'd be happy to attend." I began my preparations with the meticulousness of a general planning a campaign. I bought a stunning, elegant designer dress in a deep sapphire blue, a color that radiated confidence. It was sophisticated, powerful, and nothing like the safe, muted clothes I used to wear. I booked a suite at the most luxurious hotel in the city, the kind of place I could never have afforded before. And I made one more crucial arrangement. I timed my arrival for the wedding reception, not the ceremony, ensuring maximum impact. When I walked into the reception hall, the effect was exactly what I had hoped for. Heads turned. The room was filled with the same familiar faces from Ethan's party, but the woman who had entered was a stranger to them. I was no longer the down-and-out daughter, the object of their pity. I walked with a confidence that was earned, not feigned. My posture was straight, my smile was genuine, and I radiated a quiet, unshakable success. I spotted my family across the room. My mother, Brenda, saw me first. Her jaw literally dropped. My father, Mark, stared, his eyes wide with disbelief. Ethan just looked confused, as if his brain couldn't process the image in front of him. I didn't go to them. Instead, I let them watch as I moved through the room, greeting relatives I hadn't seen in years. My Aunt Carol, the same one who had patted my arm with such pity, rushed over. "Chloe, you look incredible. I heard you were working for David. It sounds like it's going well." "It's going wonderfully, Aunt Carol," I replied with a warm smile. "Being a department head and a stakeholder in a company you believe in is more fulfilling than I could have imagined." The words department head and stakeholder hung in the air, glittering and sharp. Her eyes widened, and she quickly excused herself to go tell everyone else. The gossip would spread like wildfire. Finally, my parents and Ethan approached me, their expressions a mixture of awe and apprehension. "Chloe," my mother said, her voice strained, "you look different." "I am different, Mom," I said calmly. "I'm happy." My father cleared his throat. We saw that article about your company. Congratulations. That's quite an achievement." It was the first time he had ever acknowledged my professional success without a "but" or a piece of unsolicited advice attached. Ethan, however, couldn't hide his resentment. "So, Uncle David's little project is paying off, huh? Must be nice to have everything handed to you." I turned to him, my smile never faltering. "Nothing was handed to me, Ethan. I built an entire marketing division from the ground up in 6 months. By the way, how are things at your firm? Still enjoying analyst II?" The jab was subtle but landed with surgical precision. He flushed a deep red and had no response. The rest of the evening was a masterclass in quiet victory. I didn't gloat. I didn't bring up the past. I simply existed as my new self. I talked about my work with passion, about my new city with excitement, about my life with a joy that was undeniable. My family watched from the sidelines, their power over me completely gone. They had cast me as the failure, the charity case, the one who needed to be managed. But that narrative had crumbled. I had rewritten my own story, and they were no longer the main characters. The final, perfect moment came near the end of the night. My father pulled me aside, looking uncomfortable. "Listen, Chloe," he stammered. Well, things have been a bit tight at the store lately. I was wondering, maybe you could." He couldn't even finish the sentence. He was about to ask me for money. Me, the daughter he had dismissed and belittled. I looked him in the eye, not with anger, but with a kind of sad finality. "I'm sorry to hear that, Dad," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "I wish you the best of luck with it." I didn't offer to help. I didn't offer a loan. I offered him the same empty platitudes he had once offered me. The tables had not just turned, they had been completely flipped. I gave him a brief hug and walked away, leaving him standing there speechless. I had won. Not by tearing them down, but by building myself up so high that their judgment could no longer reach me. Flying back to my new home after the wedding felt like ascending into the clouds in more ways than one. I felt light, unburdened. The confrontation I had braced myself for never needed to happen with fireworks and shouting. My victory was in my transformation, in the undeniable reality of my success and happiness. The power dynamic had shifted irrevocably, and we all knew it. In the weeks and months that followed, the silence from my family was different. Before, it had been a silence of indifference. Now, it was a silence born of intimidation and regret. The dynamic was completely broken, and they had no idea how to fix it, or perhaps they lacked the humility to even try. My mother was the one who attempted to bridge the gap, but her methods were as flawed as ever. She started calling, her tone unnaturally sweet. She'd ask about my work, feigning interest in the campaigns I was running. She'd talk about how proud she was, how she always knew I had it in me. But it was too little, too late. Her words were hollow, a transparent attempt to regain a foothold in my life now that I was successful. She never once apologized. She never acknowledged the pain they had caused, the cruelty of that party, or the years of being made to feel second best. She wanted to sweep it all under the rug and pretend they had been my biggest cheerleaders all along. I was polite but distant. I kept the conversations short, offering vague, non-committal answers. I was done giving them parts of myself they hadn't earned. One afternoon, she called with a specific request. "Chloe, darling," she began, "Ethan is thinking about a career change. Things at his firm aren't going as well as he'd hoped, and he's always been so interested in technology. I was thinking, since you're doing so well at Apex, maybe you could talk to David. See if there's an opening for him. He's a very fast learner." I almost laughed out loud. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. After all the mockery, after Ethan calling my job a pity position, they now wanted me to use my influence to get him a job at the very same company. They hadn't just misjudged me, they had fundamentally misunderstood the new reality. "Mom," I said, my voice calm and measured, "Apex has a very rigorous hiring process. We only consider candidates with extensive experience in the software industry or those from top-tier engineering programs. Ethan doesn't meet the basic qualifications for any of our open roles." "But you could put in a good word," she insisted. "Your family." "The reason I have the respect I do here is because I don't ask for special favors," I replied, my tone leaving no room for argument. "If Ethan wants to apply, he can do so through the public careers portal like everyone else. His resume will be reviewed along with the hundreds of others we receive each week." The message was crystal clear. The family currency they had relied on for so long held no value in my new kingdom. She mumbled a defeated, "Oh, okay," and the conversation quickly ended. Ethan never applied. My relationship with my Uncle David, however, flourished. He became more than just my boss, he became the father figure I had always craved. We had weekly dinners, we celebrated company milestones together, and he offered me the unconditional support and pride my own parents never could. He once told me, "Bringing you to this company was the single best business decision I've ever made, Chloe. Not just for Apex, but for me." I finally understood what it felt like to be truly seen and valued by family. About a year after the wedding, I received a package in the mail. It was from my father. Inside was a small, velvet box. I opened it to find my grandmother's locket, a family heirloom I had always adored but which my mother had always intended to give to Ethan's future wife. There was a short, handwritten note from my dad. It read, "Your grandmother always said this should go to the one who was brave enough to build her own life. We were wrong, Chloe. I am sorry." It was the apology I never thought I would get. It was small, and it came far too late to erase the years of hurt, but it was something. I put the locket on. It felt like a final piece of a puzzle clicking into place. It wasn't forgiveness, not completely, but it was an acknowledgement, an admission of their failure. I never did have a big, dramatic reconciliation with my parents or my brother. Our relationship remains one of polite distance, marked by occasional, awkward holiday phone calls. They can't take back what they did, and I can't forget it. But the anger and the pain have faded, replaced by a quiet peace. They no longer have the power to hurt me because my sense of self is no longer tied to their approval. My life is full now, filled with a challenging career I love, deep friendships, and the unwavering support of the one family member who saw my worth all along. Sometimes, revenge isn't about a fiery confrontation or a triumphant, "I told you so." Sometimes, the most powerful statement you can make is the quiet, undeniable evidence of a life well lived, a kingdom built from the rubble of rejection. And sometimes, the silence that follows is worth more than 1,000 words.